Good afternoon, everyone. How is everyone doing? Thank you for connecting this afternoon. Who is here? Let's see. Hello, Priscilla. Hello, Shelly Chochinov. Andrea Royave, welcome. By the way, if you're watching a replay of the class, feel free to jump to the 10 minutes mark on the video. I'm going to take this next 5 minutes just to say hello, to wait for more students. So we are going to start the class in about 5 minutes now. Everything that I have prepared for you. It's going to be about Chanukah. And I just realized, Andrea, you had most of this at the class last Sunday. It will be a review. Every year I have a Chanukah class for Torah L'chaim, so all my students that they get together week after week, every Thursday, studying Torah, can also study the next holiday. In this case, it's Chanukah, so we are going to review a few things about Chanukah. The chat is open, so I would like to know how everybody is celebrating Chanukah this year. What are your plans? We have some plans at the Shaarey Zedek. I don't know if you read about that. I think it's already on Facebook. Or we have a concert in not this Sunday. I think it's the 6th. Let me see. The 5th. Sunday, December 5th is going to be the big party at the Shaarey Zedek. I hope you can all make it. It's going to be two options. One is in person, the other one would be online. The concert is going to be streamed. If you come in person, it's going to be great. It's going to be great and safe. At the Shaarey Zedek, we prepare everything. We will have, for example, glitter tattoos for the kids, and it's going to be one-on-one. So if you want to have the glitter tattoo, you don't have to stand in line. You stay with your family, and whenever it's your turn, we're going to call your name, and you will go there, and it's going to be great. Priscilla, yeah, you have the bar mitzvah party, of course, of Felipe. He's my student. It's gonna be a great day, great day. Great student, and yeah, it's an opportunity this year to do it in person. We haven't done it in since forever. So to have a little bit of people in the building celebrating Chanukah together is going to be a great thing, believe me. Something that we are all looking forward to do that. Let's see. Shelly, you haven't told me. What are you going to do for Chanukah, Shelly? I hope you're still there. We have a small crowd today. I just realized I forgot to create the event at the beginning. It's a thing. So some people may have not been notified that we have a class today. So that's why I like to wait a little bit at the beginning. So if you're there, say hello if you haven't done so. So I know that you're around. We are going to start with the specific class in about 2 minutes. So meanwhile, the question was, what are you doing for Chanukah this year? How you're celebrating? Are you getting people at home? You're going to somebody else's home? You feel comfortable doing that? It's going to be. It's difficult. Shelly Chochin of no plans. So I hope you're going to come to the Shaarey Zedek party on the 5th. So you can have a lot of people around. It will be food. And yeah, for my house we are going to do it as a family. We still don't feel so comfortable mingling too much. Luckily, we are blessed. That's my son, Ronen, he's 8. He's going to be vaccinated on Saturday. He's going to have the first dose, the pediatric dose on Saturday. And I'm going to have my third one on the first week of December. So, yeah, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. It's going to be interesting. Yeah, my son is getting it on Saturday. So it's a great way to celebrate Shabbat. Yeah. But I already have everything for Chanukah. I have the menu planned, the candles, the different Chanukiot. The space is already prepared. I have a dreidel. I'm going to give an interview actually on CTV on Monday at 7:35 a.m. If you're around, 7:35 a.m. Winnipeg time, CTV News live in Winnipeg, they're going to interview me about Chanukah. It's going to be a short, like 4 minutes segment. I have no clue what they're going to ask me. They asked me to show some props. Hi, Clyde. This is Karen. Okay. Okay, you got in the chat. Great to know that you're here. And yeah. Okay, so let's begin studying a little bit of Chanukah today. And how do I do this? I believe it's like this. Chanukah, yay! Remember that we celebrate Chanukah for 8 nights and 8 days. 8 nights and 8 days. And starts every year on the 25th day of the Hebrew month of Kislev. So it's funny when people say, oh, this year Chanukah is so early. No, it's not early. It's always on the 25th day of Kislev. Doesn't matter which year it is. Oh, you're talking about the secular calendar. Now I understand. Okay, so yes, it's a little bit early because usually it's in December, and many years it overlaps with Christmas. This year is overlapping with the American Thanksgiving, Chanukah, which is very unusual, very unusual. Usually more in December. It should be around the solstice, always Chanukah, but because of the way the Jewish calendar works, we have things like this. That this year is at the end of November. So Chanukah will begin this coming Sunday in the evening. Okay, as soon as it's nighttime, which in Winnipeg is pretty early, and it will end on the evening of Monday, December 6th. Again, with at night, then the holiday is over. Now, what do we celebrate? Karen, you said we're in Arizona. Let's see, what are you doing? Karen said, we're in Arizona going to have a latke kiddush at our shul. Oh, you're having kiddush again. We don't have that in our synagogue yet. We don't have it yet. We just open up for people to come and enjoy the service, but not yet for the food. It's more complicated. So, but yeah, Shelly, I absolutely agree. That sounds yummy to have a latke kiddush. Sounds yummy. Even though I don't know, I have to be creative with latkes this year. I'm doing again like a low carb diet, and I realized during my life that is the only one that works with my body type. I tried everything, nothing worked except for cutting carbs, and makes me feel great. But latkes is a problem. Keridwen is here. Hello, welcome. I already recognize your YouTube name. Took me a while, but now I remember. Okay, so what do we celebrate in Chanukah? You probably heard about the miracle of the oil, right? But there is the miracle of the oil is only one aspect of Chanukah. Let's say it's only half of the story. Only half of the story. And why is that so popular? Why we celebrate and everything seems to be around the miracle of the oil? Well, that's the source that is coming from the Talmud. Hello, John, son of David. Welcome to the class. We are talking about Chanukah today. So the Talmud centered all the discussion about the oil and about the re-inauguration of the temple in Jerusalem. Remember, the temple was in the hands of the Greeks. So there was a group of Jewish people in Israel that rebelled against the Greek. They finally entered to the temple, recaptured the temple, cleaned it up, and they were able to reignite or relight the menorah at the temple for the first time in years. And the Talmud will say specifically, "Hi, Phyllis, welcome. You're not late. You can always replay after what you missed." So the Talmud is explaining what happened when they entered to the temple once again after defeating the Greeks. And this is what the Talmud says, and it's going to talk about the first miracle that we celebrate in Chanukah. And it said, what is the reason for Chanukah? Mai Chanukah? That's what the Talmud says. And then it continues, as our rabbis taught, on the 25th day of Kislev, the 8 days of Chanukah begin, in which it is forbidden to eulogize the dead or to fast. That means that it's a joyous day. In Talmudic language, every time that they say it's forbidden to eulogize the dead or to fast, that means it's a festival. For when the Greeks entered the sanctuary of the temple, they defiled all of the oil. That means they broke all the seals. This is typical on kosher food. If kosher food, it has to be sealed. And if you buy something kosher, you have to be the one open it. If somebody else, a non-Jew, open it for you, then the food is not kosher anymore. I don't know if they ever experienced that in an airplane, for example. If you order kosher food in an airplane, you have to be the one to open it. The flight attendants will come to your seat and say, "Sir, can you open it?" And then they can put it in the convection oven, for example, to heat it up. But you have to open it. So when the Jews entered to the temple once again after defeating the Greeks, they realized that the Greeks took the time to break all the seals that it will make that oil kosher. It doesn't mean that they did anything wrong with the kosher, with the oil. We don't know. But the rule is for kosher food, just in case, if the seal is broken, it's not kosher for you anymore, and it was not kosher for back then. Okay, let's continue. When the Hasmoneans overpowered them, Hasmoneans were a family of priests. They were kind of zealots at the time, very religious. They were priests, and they became very controversial. Because after defeating the Greeks, they claimed not only back the priesthood for themselves, but they also claimed the kinghood for themselves. They became kings and priests, and they were all part of the same family. And we know that priests don't supposed to be kings of Israel. The kings of Israel originally come from the family of David, not from the family of Aaron. The priests are from the family of Aaron, right? So there was a big problem, and the rabbis didn't like that. So that's why you will see here that is very little what they have to say about the Hasmoneans. Yeah, they were happy thanks to the Hasmoneans that they defeated the Greeks, but that's it. That they were happy for that generation, but immediately after, there was a domino effect of corruption from within that family that ended up with the destruction of the Second Temple. So this domino effect continued all the way until the Romans. And it was very sad. So by the time that the Talmud was written, the Hasmonean name didn't have a good reputation. Let's put it that way. Nevertheless, the Talmud is mentioning, but that's why it's very little what they have to say about this family. So the Hasmoneans overpowered them and were victorious. They searched, but could find only one cruse of oil that was intact, with the seal of the high priest. Remember? Kosher. It contained only sufficient oil to kindle the menorah for 1 day, but a miracle occurred, and they were able to light with it for 8 days. The next year, they designated these days as a festival with the recitation of hymns of praise and thanksgiving. Oh, Andre, you will be at the party at Shaarey Zedek. That will be great. That will be great. It's going to be lots of fun. And we're planning a little concert with musicians and movement. Let's see how it goes. I will go dressed up that day. I know it's not Purim, right? But I think I have something like from the times of the Hasmoneans that I will be wearing for that party. So the rabbis understand that the miracle of the oil is the first miracle. They call it like that, the first miracle of Chanukah. Okay? And we learn about that from the Talmud. What is the second miracle of Chanukah that the rabbis mention? The second one is better explained in the Siddur, in the prayer book. And it goes like this. If you have a Siddur, when you pray the silent Amida during Chanukah, you will have to add a paragraph. It will be very clear. It said on Chanukah, add this paragraph. And it goes like this. We are grateful for the miracles, the salvation, the mighty deeds, the victories, and the battles that you perform for our ancestors in those days at this time. In the days of Matityahu, son of Yohanan, the high priest, the Hasmoneans, and his sons, when the evil Greek kingdom arose against your people Israel to make them forget your Torah and to cause them to transgress the laws of that you willed. In your great mercy, you stood by them in their time of distress. You fought their struggle, judged their claims, and retaliated on their behalf. You delivered the strong into the hands of the weak, the many into the hands of the few, the impure into the hands of the pure, the evil into the hands of the righteous, and the wanton into the hands of those who were occupied with the study of your Torah. And for yourself you made a great and sanctified name in your world. And for your nation Israel, you wrote a great victory and deliverance even this very day. Afterwards, your children entered the precincts of your house, cleared out your sanctuary from the idols that had been placed there, purified your temple, and kindled lights in the courtyards of your holy temple. And they designated these 8 days of Chanukah to offer thanks and praise to your great name. Okay? Which is interesting about this is it does not mention anything about the miracle of the oil. I don't know if you ever thought about that. Every time you came to shul, every time you went through Chanukah at shul, you read this and there is nothing about the miracle of the oil. But it does mention a miracle, and that was the miraculous defeat, or the miraculous victory. Let's put it that way. The miraculous victory of the people, the Jewish people, over the Greeks. And according to the Siddur, that is the main miracle of Chanukah. It's almost like the miracle of the oil. It's a miracle, but it doesn't compare with the big miracle of the war that they won. Quite interesting. The Talmud does not talk much about the Hasmoneans, and the Siddur does not talk much about the oil. But at the end of the day, we study the Talmud during Chanukah, we read the Siddur, and between the two, we have a better understanding of what happened back then, and two beautiful miracles to inspire us. Two beautiful miracles to inspire us. But now, the two miracles actually, they point to different places. The one from the oil, it's to me the main message of the miracle of oil is the fact that they went ahead and did it anyway. They have enough oil for one night, and they knew that it wouldn't be enough for the week or so that they needed to make more kosher olive oil. But they went and they kindled the menorah anyway, and God was moved by that, to the point that God actually made a miracle. And that oil kept burning for another 7 days. To me, every time I read the story of the miracle of the oil, I realize that sometimes, if you wait until all the things in your life, all the situations of your life are actually perfect before you do something, at the end of the day, you won't do anything, ever. If you wait, we shouldn't wait until all the circumstances are perfect before we do something. Sometimes we just have to do it, and just trust that along the way we are going to find other ways to do what we couldn't do today. It's like that. That's one of the things that come to my mind when I read about the miracle of the oil. And when I see the miracle of the war, is the same thing. Same thing in the sense that, this group of people, they knew that on paper, they didn't have what it takes to defeat the Greeks. But with a little bit of planning and a little bit of faith, they achieved it. They achieved a great thing. And again, it took two things, a little bit of planning and a little bit of faith. Because they say, okay, this is what we have. This is the number of soldiers we have. This is the number of people we have. And this is the big task that we have. We have to defeat the Greeks. What can we do? And that act of being aware of what they had, that allowed them to create a strategy that eventually helped them to be successful. So I believe it happened to us all the time, that we feel that we have an impossible task in front of us, but it's not that we don't have anything. We feel like we don't have enough. We don't have enough to take that task. But sometimes we have to stop. You have to plan and to have a little faith, and to go with that. So we had these two miracles from Chanukah. Is there anything else that you get from the story of Chanukah? Is there anything else that inspires you? I would like to see it in the chat. Please type it. I want to see what kind of inspiration you get from Chanukah. I told you mine. I want to know yours. So, let's continue, because let's go back to the Talmud for a second. What it says, what is the reason for Chanukah? Why? and I always think, why did the Talmud have to ask this question? What is the reason? If you ask me, it looks like there were these people back in the time when the Talmud was written, that they were celebrating something on the 25th day of Kislev. Okay? They call it Chanukah. And now the rabbis at the time of the Talmud, they realize that all these people are celebrating that time of the year. And they try to explain. They say, okay, whoa, what is this that these people are celebrating that they call Chanukah? Why? What are they celebrating at this time of the year? So the Talmud explained it. Now, why did the Talmud have the need to explain it that way? And I believe because the celebration around the time of Chanukah is something that predated Chanukah. And we can see that in many cultures, that they will all have some kind of festival of lights around the time of the solstice, right? Many cultures in these days, and many other cultures in those days, that sometimes those civilizations don't exist anymore, but we know that they had some kind of celebration of light. What the Talmud kind of reflects that, it's talking about that in the sense that it does mention that it was some kind of celebration around the solstice that predated Chanukah. And I believe that's why the Talmud had to specify that those candles that people were lighting in those days were not to celebrate that old kind of celebration that everybody else were doing around, but it was specifically about the victory over the Greeks and the miracle of the oil. But let's see what was this old tradition to celebrate during the time of the winter solstice. The Talmud also says, and it's talking about Adam, the very first human being. When Adam noticed that the days were getting shorter, he said, "Is the world becoming darker because of my sins? Will it soon return to chaos?" And this is what God meant when he punished me with mortality. You know what happened here, right? This is Adam and Eve were created on Rosh Hashanah. We read that every year, Yom Harat Olam, Rosh Hashanah. Today, God created the world. That means that God created Adam and Eve. And that is September, right? What happened is, Adam is alive now. He was kicked out of paradise. And he realized that winter was coming. It happens to us every September. Every September. We already start preparing ourselves for winter, because we know that September comes and then days are getting colder, days start getting shorter, right? So this happened for Adam, but Adam didn't have anybody to teach him this. He didn't know what's going on. He just realized that he was kicked out of paradise. Days were getting shorter. Probably also days were getting colder. And he said, okay, this is going to continue this way until I'm going to die. And he was terrified. He was totally terrified. So he said, okay, I guess this is what God meant when he said, the day that you eat from the forbidden fruit, you're going to die. Maybe this is the kind of death that I deserve. So what did he do? He tried to revert the decree. He prayed and fasted for 8 days. Can you start connecting things here? 8 days? 8 days? Okay? Then he said, when the period prior to the winter solstice arrived, he saw that the days were now growing longer. He realized, this is the way of the world. He realized by himself, nobody taught him, that we have seasons. We have seasons. And then he said, then Adam, where is Adam? Here. Then Adam made 8 days of celebration. So he celebrated for 8 days around the same time that we celebrate Chanukah. So it's not crazy to say that the Talmud brings this up in an early stage to try to explain why people will celebrate for 8 days around the time of the winter solstice. So that's why now the Talmud explains that it's a specific holidays that we observe, we Jews, around that time that is called Chanukah, and it has nothing to do with Adam celebrating the solstice. It has nothing to do with anything else. This is different. We celebrate 8 days because of the 8 days of the miracle of the oil. And that's why I believe the Talmud needed to explain with all those words the miracle of Chanukah. Now, it's also not a coincidence that Chanukah lasts for 8 days. I have to say that the number 8 that is mentioned here, the number 8 is mentioned many times in the Torah. Many times in the Torah. So let's see if you remember. If you do, please type it in the chat. Other occasions in the Torah where we read about the number 8. Other occasions in the Torah where we learn about the number 8. Let's see who wants to come first. There is one that is very easy. One is very easy, specifically if you have a baby boy, that you will know the number 8. But while you think about that, Pesach, okay, Pesach is 8 days, but it says in the diaspora. Outside the diaspora is 7 days. Pesach. 8 days. What happened with 8 days? Come on. It can't be just Shelly Chochinov answering that one. The Brit. Yes. Thank you, Karen and Clyde, and thank you, Shelly. The Brit Milad, the circumcision, happens at the 8th day. The other thing that you will see that happened at the 8th day was the inauguration of the very first sanctuary in the desert, the tabernacle. They had a celebration day after day after day, and at the 8th day is when they offered the first sacrifice. So the 8th day was special, and it was the day that they started to use that portable temple to connect with God. The number 8 is very powerful in Judaism. And it represents miracle. So if there is one number in Judaism that represents miracle, that is the number 8. Why? Well, because number 7 represents nature. 7 days of the week, right? 7 is nature, is the number of nature. So the fact that 8 is above 7, that means that 8 is above nature. And miracles are things that they are above nature. So the number 8 represent the supernatural. So, John, yes, the Brit. So the number 8 represents something that is supernatural. 8 days a week. Holier. It's not holier. I'm saying it's miraculous. Number 8 is miraculous. It's miraculous because the I want to just talk a little bit about this. For example, the Brit Milah, the circumcision, is when in a sense, you're altering nature by removing the foreskin. But that implies that is the removal of that part, and we don't know how this works at a spiritual level. The removal of that part of the body, it creates a special soul connection with God. So there is the miraculous nature of the bris. And you see, sometimes we center the discussion about circumcision, not circumcision, about a physical thing. It's good for your body, it's bad for your body, but it's never like, it was never about that. Circumcision has nothing to do with the body. It has all to do with our soul. It's just like that. Basically, you will see that basically according to the Torah, the quote unquote, the punishment for not circumcising a boy is it's called the karet, is which means it's not death, it's spiritual death. It's when God cuts ties with you, in the sense that God cannot connect with you in the same way that would connect in other ways. So it's kind of almost the circumcision involving the opening of a special channel. You know, when you have interference and you remove the interference, and then you have a special channel, and that's why it's not a coincidence that we did on the 8th day, because the 8 is the number of the miracle, and it's not a coincidence that Chanukah lasts for 8 days. The miracle of Chanukah, because it's a miracle. A miracle lasts for 8 days. It's a symbol. It's a symbol of the miraculous nature of Chanukah. And the fact that Chanukah is celebrated for 8 days, and there was a war that the Israelites won, it's also talking about the miraculous nature of that battle against the Greeks. Okay? But again, I wanted to mention this, that is the celebration around the winter solstice existed even before Chanukah. Now, there are some theories that say that with the Hasmoneans celebrated with the enter to the temple wasn't necessarily the winter solstice celebration, but Sukkot. Sukkot is celebrated for 8 days because their wish, their plan, the strategy was to defeat the Greeks fast enough so they could enter to the sanctuary around Sukkot. So they could celebrate Sukkot the way it was ordained in the Torah, but they couldn't. The war extended a little longer, all the way between September, October, until December. So at the first chance, they had to enter to the temple, they cleaned it up, and they celebrated the first Sukkot for a few years. Because they couldn't before, because the Greeks were there. So, and Sukkot is celebrated for 8 days, and they created like a pseudo Sukkot, something similar, and then eventually became Chanukah. Chag Sameach, Priscilla, thank you for being here. Hope to see you soon. I will see you for Felipe's bar mitzvah. Bye. Go take care of your patients. Okay? So, the other interesting thing is the way Chanukah was celebrated back in the time of the Talmud was very different the way it's celebrated right now. Back in the day of the Talmud, and I will bring it here, it says the precept of Chanukah requires 1 light for each man and his household. So basically what it means is only 1 candle per home, per night. That's not the way we do it. We have the whole Chanukiah with 8 candles plus the shamash, 9 in total. Back in the time of the Talmud, 1 candle would suffice to celebrate Chanukah. But then it says here that then there were people that they believed that 1 candle per household was not enough. So they said those who seek to beautify the mitzvot, I mean they were a little bit more religious, kindle a single light for each household member. So everyone in the house will have to light 1. Okay? Closer to what we do, because everyone in the house needs a Chanukiah on Chanukah. I don't know if you knew that. I know some people that they have the Chanukiah for the house and that's it. No, technically, halachically, is incorrect. Everyone in the house needs their own Chanukiah for Chanukah. Okay? Let's continue, because then the Talmud says that there were those who were even more religious. So concerning those who are particularly eager to beautify the mitzvot, ultra-religious, the house of Shammai says, on the first day, he lights 8 candles and then decreases in number each day. So if you were following back in the day the recommendations of the house of Shammai, the first night of Chanukah, you will light 8 candles. The second night of Chanukah, you will light 7 candles. The third night of Chanukah, you will light 6 candles, and so forth. Okay? That was the tradition of Shammai. That's not what we do. We follow the tradition of Beit Hillel. Let me read it here. Beit Hillel says, on the first day, let me correct this, it should be italics. Beit Hillel says, on the first day, he kindles 1 light and then increases day by day. Just the way we do it. One candle the first night, 2 candles the second night, 3 candles the third night, so forth. So why the difference is the house of Shammai considers the days remaining, and the house of Hillel considers the days elapsed. Interesting, the language of the Talmud. That doesn't tell me much anyway. And the house of Hillel reasons for requiring a continual increase for 1 to 8 lights is the principle that in sacred matters we elevate and we do not lower the degree of sanctity. In the sense that, it's not a good example to start the festival with lots of light and to finish the festival with just a little bit of light. Come on. What kind of example is that? What kind of model for our children is that? You start with lots of energy and you end with a little bit of energy. I understand. There are many theories of why Shammai proposed 8 to 1. Number one is, as I mentioned before, because the first Chanukah was actually a late celebration of Sukkot. And if you go to the Torah, during Sukkot, there was this famous sacrifices of the 70 bulls, 70 animals. And then the sacrifices during the days of Sukkot was decreasing in number. So Shammai would say, well, listen, this was a late celebration of Chanukah. We understand, we don't do sacrifices, but we light lights. So at least we should do the same thing that used to happen during Sukkot. Because Chanukah started as a kind of a Sukkot. So we start with 8, we finish with 1. And Beit Hillel said, yes, or people from Beit Shammai, you might be right about that, but again, what kind of message is that? Light is not the same of the sacrifices. Light is not the same. We should always aim to increase light in the world. Remember what happened with Adam. Adam noticed that every day was a little bit less light, and he became depressed. Remember, I will bring it back here. Adam said, right? When he noticed that the days were getting shorter, there is less and less light, he freaked out, and he said, "Does it mean that I'm gonna die?" The kind of it's the mindset that decreasing the light can have in ourselves. So that's why Beit Hillel said, bad example. We should start with 1 candle and end with 8, because we should always aim to increase light in the world. Beautiful. Beautiful. So that's what we do. Now let's read a little bit of the practical things that we do as presented by Maimonides, by the Ramban in the Middle Ages, where by then all the traditions of Chanukah were already kind of settled. There was already a standard of what to do for Chanukah. Back in the Talmud, remember, there were not. Some people 1 candle, some people 1 candle per person, some people 8 to 1, some people 1 to 8, and I believe that took a few years until it settled, and there was 1 set of traditions of what to do on Chanukah. Middle Ages, Maimonides already got the picture clear, and he wrote this. He says, when the Greeks ruled during the Second Temple period, they oppressed Israel with harsh decrees. In other words, Israel was living in times they were full of anti-Semites. So they, the Greeks, banned their religion. So basically, the Greeks didn't allow our ancestors to practice their Judaism freely, and did not allow them to be engaged in Torah and mitzvot. Very sad. They also robbed their wealth and invaded the daughters and entered the shrine and raised havoc, defiling all that was pure. You realize that Maimonides goes a little bit beyond the oil. It's not only the oil that they defiled. The oil is just a symbol of everything that it was sacred for Jews, that the Greek tried to make it not sacred anymore. So it's not only that they infiltrated the oil, they infiltrated Jewish practice as well. They made it not kosher by adding things that they are not kosher. So what I'm saying is Chanukah is also a day of Jewish pride. It's a day where when we stand up and we say enough is enough, I'm a Jew, and no matter what, I have the right to practice my Judaism. I have the right to live my Jewish life the way I want. And what I was realizing is that that's not always the case. Sometimes in the last few decades, we try to water down Chanukah so it will blend perfectly with Christmas. And I was thinking that nothing far away from the original Chanukah, or the idea of Chanukah. Chanukah is a celebration of Jewish identity. It doesn't mean that we should not find bridges with society, with other religions. It doesn't mean that we should not celebrate peace in the world and everything else, but we have the entire rest of the year for that. Chanukah is a day of celebration of Jewish identity. It's amazing. And how sometimes we forget about that. That's just a little spoiler of the article that I wrote for the Shofar. Shofar, by the way, those of you who are not in Winnipeg, is the magazine that we have at the synagogue. So if you receive it in the mail, you will read my article. I'm talking specifically about that, how we forgot about the original message of Chanukah. And if you don't receive it in the mail, you can always read it online once it is published. And yeah, so let's continue here. It said, and Israel suffered greatly from the Greeks until the God of our father had mercy and saved us from them. For the high priest of the Hasmoneans' house arose and killed them and saved Israel from them. A kingdom was made from the priest, and the kingship was returned to Israel for more than 200 years until the destruction of the second temple. Yeah, what Maimonides forgets to say here is that it was also thanks to the Hasmoneans that happened. Because corruption, unfortunately, took roots within the Hasmonean family, and eventually the temple was destroyed. Maimonides continues. When Israel reigned victorious over her enemies and destroyed them, it was the 25th day of Kislev. They entered the shrine and found only one cruse of oil, which would suffice for one day, and yet they lit their lamps from this oil for 8 days until they pressed new olives and produced pure oil. Can you see here how Maimonides actually is praising people for lighting the menorah, even though they knew that they didn't have enough oil? Maimonides said, good for you guys. Good for you that you did that. Good for you. Because even without the miracle, that was a great thing that they tried. They tried nevertheless. The other thing that we see here is that 25th of Kislev was the day of the victory, the day that they stopped fighting the Greeks. And that's another way to read the name Chanukah. Chanu, in Hebrew, Chanu, means they rested. They rested. Coming from the verb lanuach in Hebrew, which means to rest. Lanuach. So Chanu, they rested. And Ka, Chanukah, there are two Hebrew letters that the numerical value is 25. So Chanukah could be read as they rested on the 25th. Who knew? Maybe that was the original meaning of the name of Chanukah. But Chanukah also means inauguration. because the temple was inaugurated once again after the Greeks. But Chanukah also comes from the word chinuch, that means education. So also Chanukah, a day of Jewish pride, a day of recommitment with Jewish education. It's a wonderful thing, wonderful thing. So let's continue with what Maimonides said. I said, for this reason, the sages of that generation decreed that these 8 days, which begin on the 25th of Kislev, are days of celebration and praise. On these days, we light candles each of the 8 evenings in the entryways of homes in order to reveal and publicize the miracle of these days, which are known as Chanukah. Okay? So by the time of Maimonides, it was very clear how we do it, that we have the Chanukiah, and it has to be placed in a place of the house where people from outside the house can see it. Some people actually will put it a little bit outside the house. The way you will see these big menorahs sometimes in different cities around the world to publicize the miracle. So again, Maimonides repeats, it is forbidden to eulogize and fast on these days, just as it is forbidden on Purim, and we light candles. And that is rabbinic tradition. Maimonides make it clear, guys, this is not from the Torah. This is something that the rabbis decided, and that's why we do it. The same way that we read the Megillat Esther on Purim. The rabbi decided to do it. It's not coming from the Torah. Okay? So here we have the calendar for this year. For Chanukah, again, you will see during Chanukah we have 3 blessings. We have to recite 3 blessings, but only 2 blessings are recited the very first night of Chanukah. The other 2, all the other nights until the end. So every night we recite the following blessings: Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu v'mitzvotav etzivanu lehadlik ner shel Chanukah. Okay, we are thanking God, and basically says that we bless the name of God because God commanded us to light the lights of Chanukah. You probably know the melody of this one. That it goes, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu v'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Chanukah. That's the traditional melody for all the Chanukah blessings. Okay? After you do that, you say the second blessing, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asa nimsim lavotenu bayamim hahem bazman hazeh. And then only the very first time that you light the menorah that year, usually the first night of Chanukah, but if for any reason you couldn't do the first night, and you start with the second night. You see, when the first time that you light the Chanukiah that year to celebrate Chanukah, you sing this blessing, which is the Sheheyanu. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Sheheyanu v'kiyemanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. And those are the 3 blessings for Chanukah. And again, you can see there I just realized the Shabbat candles and the Havdalah times are wrong. Don't quote me on those 2. You have to check your calendar to see when is the Shabbat candle time and the Havdalah time, depends where you live. Okay? That was a mistake that I made when I created this. Another very important thing that sometimes people make a mistake here. Remember that the blessings are recited before lighting the menorah. So 1, 2, or 3 blessings, depending on the day, you have to sing all the blessings first, and when you finish the last one, that's when you start lighting the menorah. In fact, this is a common practice for virtually every mitzvah, every commandment in Judaism. You first say the blessing, and then and only after you say the blessing, you do the action. For example, if you want to eat an apple First you say Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam Asher Kitshanu V'Mitzvotav Tzivanu. Sorry, Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam Borei Pri Ha'etz. Borei Pri Ha'etz. And then you eat it. First you say the blessing, then you eat it. And so forth. The only exception that I can think is the Shabbat candles. That first you light it, then you bless it, and it's because it's Shabbat. If you say the blessing of Shabbat, that means Shabbat already started, and then you can't light the candles. That's why we reverse the order. But other than that, because in Chanukah there is no restrictions of lighting candles, first you say the blessing, then you light the candles. Keridwen, you have a question. You say, why does the date for Chanukah keep changing? That's a good question. It's because in Judaism we have the Hebrew calendar that is based on the movement of the moon, and we have the secular calendar, the Canadian calendar, that follows the sun. And those two are not the same. The lunar year, it means that the year based on the moon, is 11 days shorter than the solar year, which is the year following the sun, which is the secular, the Canadian year. So that's why we have 11 days difference every year. And then what the rabbis do is once every 2 or 3 years, they add a whole extra Hebrew month to stay pretty much in sync. So our Jewish calendar would still kind of in sync with the solar calendar, but then you have things like this, that sometimes Hanukkah is a little bit before Christmas, sometimes it's a little bit after, so there is a wiggle room there, because we get out of sync pretty quickly. In fact, we get out of sync 11 days every year, and that's why. Yeah. Oh, I'm glad that you learned something new today. Yeah. And then after we light the menorah, some people will sing different songs, and that is family tradition. There are different ways. The thing you should remember, we have special food for Chanukah, and basically it's any kind of food involving oil. It's a miracle of the oil, so we eat oil. And the most common is the latke. It's a fried latke. Some people put sour cream, some people put applesauce. I would like to ask for everybody in the class to vote in the chat what you prefer, sour cream or applesauce. Then we'll see who is the winner, sour cream or applesauce. I will vote here as well. Let's see. This is my vote. I've just voted for sour cream. No, come on, Shelly. No. Doesn't fly. Please, which one is your favorite? I want to know which one is your favorite, sour cream or applesauce. Please vote. So, the other thing that is traditional in Chanukah is that we pray with the dreidel. We play with the dreidel. And we don't really know where the dreidel came from, but we play with the dreidel in Chanukah, and it's a plain. I guess applesauce. Oh, come on, applesauce, everybody here. Okay, I lost today, but I forgot to mention as an option plain. I like sour cream. I like sour cream with everything. Sour cream, yogurt, all those kind of things. I love it. So the game of the dreidel, something that not only the kids, we should all be playing on Chanukah, is traditional. There you have a little bit of the instructions how to play. We play with money, with beans, with candies, with chocolates, anything. The whole idea is every participant, every player start with the same amount of money, beans, chocolate, etc. And then you follow instructions. You spin the dreidel, and then depends on the letter you get, you play. You either take some of the pot, you put some on the pot, etc. Now, the letters you see here, they have a meaning. It says that Nun, Gimel, Hey, and Shin stand for Nes Gadol Hayasham. A big miracle happened there. What is there? In Israel. So if you have a dreidel that is coming from Israel, the Shin will become a Pei. It will be Nes Gadol Hayapo. a great miracle happened here. That's the difference between the dreidel, the Israeli dreidel, and the dreidel used by Jews around the world outside Israel. This is the one we have here. Okay? And this is a quick introduction for Chanukah. And I hope you have a chance to learn a little bit or to refresh your knowledge about Chanukah. Thank you, Starboard Solaris. May the everlasting light shine upon us. It's a beautiful message. You see, the fact of celebrating somehow the solstice, it means, in the words of the rabbis, that finally light defeated darkness. When we feel that the light is going to last forever, celebrating the solstice means, look, from now on, every day is going to start getting longer and longer. That light that we thought is going to take over the world, actually, yeah, it got far enough, but now it's time for light to start shining brighter and brighter, and it's something that we can also learn of Chanukah, and it's every time we are going to add more light to the Chanukiah, to the menorah, and we also have that message. So, yeah. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for participating in today's class. Remember, the big celebration of the Shaarey Zedek is going to be not this Sunday, but next Sunday in the afternoon around 3:30 or 4 o'clock. I can't remember. Check our website. We have activities for the kids, and we have a concert with musicians, with live music in the sanctuary. It's also going to be live stream, the concert. So if you can make it, you can do that. Remember, if you haven't done so, subscribe to our channels. Give us the thumbs up. Give us the thumbs up, and hope to see you soon. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day, and happy Chanukah. Bye now.